Hello, everyone. Charles Watts here. Welcome back to Inside Arsenal. It's Sunday, and what a nice Sunday morning it is after last night's or yesterday afternoon. 5-0 win for Arsenal. Back in the Premier League, putting Crystal Palace, a very poor Crystal Palace side, to the sword at the Emirates to get back to winning ways. Really, really big win for Arsenal. Important win for Arsenal. So we will look at that a lot more in depth in today's show. Of course, I did do the sort of reaction show yesterday. Apologies. Sort of looking at it afterwards and seeing some of your comments, the Emirates Stadium Wi-Fi clearly was not the greatest to do the live stream after the game, and it did sort of drop out from time to time. So yeah, sorry if that was pretty annoying to watch, but fortunately that was out of my control. Hopefully the Wi-Fi here is a lot stronger, so we get through this one in a lot better shape. Okay, let's start with yesterday's game, shall we? 5-0. I don't know. It's an interesting game. I thought weird game in a way, because I don't think Arsenal were great. Certainly not in the first half. You could tell, I think, the hangover from previous results was still there. Crystal Palace were doing what most teams do when they come to the Emirates. They sit very, very deep. They didn't give Arsenal much space at all to run into. It was the classic low block against Arsenal, and Arsenal were struggling at times to break them down, but they did go in half time 2-0 up thanks to two set piece goals. And that's such an important part of Arsenal in a way. No one has scored more Premier League, no one has scored more set piece goals than Arsenal in the Premier League this season, and it is a really key part of their attack. And it's interesting to see the reaction to that. I think, like, even looking, obviously, I had my laptop out in the press box yesterday during the game, and you could see the sort of what people were talking about when they were discussing the game. And there's lots of almost people kind of look down on the fact if you score goals from set pieces, which I think is pretty weird, to be honest, because they're worth exactly the same as a goal from open play, and they're a really important part of football. They always have been. And if you're good at set pieces, then you're going to give yourself a really good chance of winning games. And I think for Arsenal as well, and look, this is what Mikel Arteta had to say after the game when he was asked about the sort of set pieces, is having the ability to score from many different ways, especially when you attack a low block team like this. To score in a certain way, everything has to be nailed absolutely perfectly. When you generate things that are a bit more chaotic, sometimes it opens teams up, and it is more difficult to do that. Today, I think we exploited that really well because Palace had to change their behaviour and allowed us to spaces to exploit. And I thought that was a really good sort of explanation from Mikel in terms of how important set pieces are, especially when you come up against teams who are going to play the way Palace and pretty much every team has done against Arsenal this season. You're going to find space at a real premium, and it's going to be really hard, especially when the game's at 0-0 or 1-0, to really be able to get at teams and attack them at pace into wide open spaces behind them. But if you can score in other ways, like Arsenal can with set pieces, that's such a crucial thing, because then that allows the game state to change, as we saw yesterday. Gabriel's 2 goals, I thought it was really harsh he had the second goal taken away from him. I still think, and I've seen lots of replays of it, I still think that's going in. I don't know how that's gone down as an own goal. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there is a replay that I haven't seen that shows that definitively that is going wide. But yeah, I thought it was a bit harsh that he's had that goal taken away from him. But anyway, those 2 goals that allowed Arsenal go into half-time 2-0 up, it just changes things completely, because then Palace have to come out differently and play a different style of game in the second half. And that allows Arsenal to do what they did in the second half, to pick them off on the counter-attack, to suddenly have that space that they've so rarely had this season to run into. And with the players Arsenal have got, they're not bad players. They haven't turned bad overnight. They can still do what they did last season when they get that amount of space. And they showed that yesterday with the 3rd, 4th and 5th goals. And that's why set pieces are just so important. It's why I don't understand why so many people look down on them. And it's like, oh, well, you can't score from open play. It's like, well, it's worth exactly the same. And if you do score from set pieces, then it changes the game completely, as we saw yesterday. And when you got someone like Gabriel, he's just so good in the air. And he's just so underrated by people outside of Arsenal, Gabriel. I mean, there has not been many better signings made in the Premier League in the last few years than Gabriel. Saliba gets all the flowers, and I understand that because he's such a generational talent. But that just sometimes just lets Gabriel get overlooked, and I just don't think he should be overlooked so much, because he's so good in defence as well. It's really, really solid. That partnership he's formed with Saliba is so impressive and so key to Arsenal. But then at the other end, there's just no one better at attacking balls when they come in. You look at the height he got on their first goal. You can see, if you're watching on YouTube, the picture of him scoring it here. just so impressive. And I know lots of people looked at it and were like, oh, he's got his hands on the goalkeeper. And Gary Neville did what Gary Neville always does and tries to wind up Arsenal Twitter immediately and compare it to the goal that was ruled out, that was given at Newcastle that Arsenal complained about. It's completely different than that. Gabriel had a big, long run, got up really high. Yes, his arms were sort of on his shoulder, but he'd already made the jump. He wasn't stopping the defender. Completely different to what happened at Newcastle when he had two hands pushed on the back of his neck to stop him getting off the ground. And he was about to actually clear it. But look, I'm not going to go on about Gary Neville because frankly no one wants to listen to Gary Neville. But yeah, brilliant set piece play from Arsenal in that first half and brilliant from Gabriel once again. Trossard's third goal I thought was really, really good, and I thought it shone a light on David Raya, who I probably think that was David Raya's best performance for Arsenal yesterday. He didn't have to do too much from a goalkeeping point of view in terms of actual saves. He made one in the first half after his poor clearance had been picked off, and I think it was Lerma, wasn't it, at that shot with the outside of his foot that Raya did well to save. Other than that, he did everything he had to do. The Eze free kick he tipped over in the second half, another Eze shot from distance, which he turned around the post, but they were saves you would expect him to make. But in terms of his distribution and his coming for crosses, his claiming crosses, he was absolutely perfect, like exceptional, I thought. And his quick thinking and the quality of his throw to send Gabriel Jesus away for the third goal was excellent. He was very unlucky just before that with another one, really brilliant pass, long distance pass that ended with Trossard having a shot that he got all wrong and miscued, and that could have been a goal as well. And I thought it was a really excellent performance. You can see if you're watching YouTube this sort of pass map of David Raya there, and I thought he was really, really good. And he's been criticised heavily this season, and understandably so at times, for some of the mistakes he's made. And yes, I know he made that poor clearance in the first half and people jumped on that and were like, but that's happens. Every goalkeeper does that. It's going to happen. It's just the way you play. That is, you watch Edison, you watch Alisson, they'll do that 2 or 3 times in a game as well. It's just what's going to happen during games because of the way the goalkeepers are asked to play. But I think all round, I had to look at that performance yesterday. I thought that was his best performance so far in an Arsenal shirt. And he was so key to Trossard's goal. And it was a lovely finish from Trossard as well, especially after he'd miscued that one just before. He took his time, sent the defender to Spurs, basically, down the Seven Sisters Road. And it was a great finish from Trossard, who I still think in that position, I don't think there's a better finisher at Arsenal. I think I'd back Trossard over pretty much anyone to finish in and around the penalty area like that. It was a good goal for Trossard. It was his 1 year anniversary from signing for Arsenal, exactly 1 year to the day since he made that move from Brighton, and that was a lovely way to top it off of him. And then Gabriel Martinelli, of course, putting the gloss on the icing on the cake late on with those 2 goals when he came on as a sub. I thought he played really well, actually, not just the goals. I thought it was a really good cameo from Gabriel Martinelli. He really stretched him. I mean, it was perfect for him, wasn't it? Absolutely perfect for him. Wide open spaces, Palace sort of all over the shop, trying to push forward to get themselves back into the game, and that just allowed Martinelli to basically run into acres and acres of wide green grass, and he took full advantage. The finishes were great, especially for players clearly struggling for a bit of confidence, or has been struggling for a bit of confidence. The first finish, very Thierry Henry-esque, and then the second goal, he was never going to miss that after scoring the first. And Mikel, speaking about it afterwards, he was asked if you think that sort of confidence will really get a boost from that, and he said, I think it's going to make him really good. Sometimes when you're in that period, and he had a little issue in the last few days in training, so he wasn't fully fit, and that changes momentum, it changes perception, it re-energizes you. It's everything. And hopefully that is exactly what yesterday does for Gabriel Martinelli. It re-energizes him. And there's an interesting one here from Louis, who's got in touch and said, Martinelli off the bench is actually a no-brainer going forwards against teams like Palace, who play the low block. For the first 60 minutes, when defenders are fresh and focused, it's not easy to get him behind. Then it suits Trossard and his technical abilities to try and create openings. When we're at 60 minutes plus and defenders become tired, game becomes stretched, this is absolutely Martinelli territory. Not overly fair on Martinelli to use him as an impactor always, but he has started a lot of games where we struggled to get goals recently. I mean, it's a really good point. I think game state plays a big part in it, though. As I was saying, yesterday was perfect for Martinelli when he came on because Arsenal had that lead and Palace had to push forward, and that allowed the spaces for Martinelli to run into. If he's coming on, yes, defenders might be tired, but still, if he's coming on 60 minutes and it's still 0-0, then he's still not going to get that sort of opportunity that he did yesterday. So I think game state plays a big part. And again, that's when I go back to set pieces as being so important and such a crucial weapon in Arsenal's Arsenal. I keep saying that because that will allow them to be able to attack teams more in the second half if they can get themselves in front against the low block. And then and again, it shows why Nicolas Jove is so highly respected at Arsenal, the work he's doing on the set pieces, and the numbers back that up massively. So when you look at the sort of how the game panned out, I thought it was interesting. I spoke about this yesterday in the Arsenal in my post-match show that but going into this game, Arsenal's last 3 matches, they'd had 60 shots, scored 1 goal. They had an XG of 6 from those 3 games combined, only scored 1 from them. And then you look at this yesterday, they had an XG of 2.5 and they score 5 goals. I mean, it's just the way football works, isn't it? It's crazy. I really did feel like they were going to smash Crystal Palace yesterday, and I broke my cardinal rule. Like, I never predict games. I always results of games. I think I'm too superstitious for that. But even I did yesterday. I was saying before the game in the press room, and to someone I met on the tube on the way up there, hello if you're watching, the guys who I saw from Birmingham, and I said I thought it was going to be 4-0. I really did. I thought, and in the press room I said it was going to be 4-0 and Martinelli scored twice. I was so close, but I really did feel like everything I'd heard about what the mood was like at Arsenal after the trip in Dubai, what the place was like around the London Colney in the week building up to yesterday's game, that they were really looking sharp and ready to try and make a, big response to those defeats. I felt really confident. They were coming up against a Palace side who were there for the taking, quite frankly, and were very, very poor. It has to be said, but you can only beat what's in front of you, and Arsenal did that yesterday. But I just felt like they were going to score a few yesterday, and it was no surprise. And they were ruthless, and that's the difference. That's what, against West Ham they weren't ruthless. Against Liverpool they weren't ruthless. Yesterday, when the chances came, they took them, and that's what you got to do. And it just shows how mad football can be. It really does. Mikel clearly really happy with it. He said we wanted to start the second part of the season with a great performance, with a great result, and build that positivity and momentum again. And I think the boys did that, and they did a good job today. Of course, the frustrating thing for Arsenal now is they don't have a game for 10 days. You want to carry on. You want to try and build on the momentum you got from yesterday. But now they've got a 10-day wait until the trip to Nottingham Forest on Tuesday week, which isn't ideal because it's FA Cup, I think, next weekend, isn't it? Of course, Arsenal are out of that. So Mikel was asked, what are you going to do? I saw Bukayo Saka afterwards said him and the team were going to ask to go back to Dubai again. Said it jokingly, of course. But Mikel was asked what they were going to do, and he just says, resting and looking after some players. At the moment, we are really short in numbers, so we have to really manage a few players, especially players that have played a lot of football. We had good training blocks, one to train really hard and other ones to use for good game preparation. So we're going to try and have to maximize that space. And when he talks about being limited and numbers being stretched at the moment, what isn't going to help is the injury issues to Declan Rice and to Gabriel yesterday. That was a big sort of blot on the copybook yesterday. Bit worrying, it has to be said. Declan Rice, you could sort of see mouth to Emil Smith-Rowe, I think, hammy when he went off, which is a concern because, I mean, hammy, generally you think 3 weeks, at least 3 weeks on the sidelines. And with Liverpool coming up, that is not what you want for Declan Rice. And Gabriel as well had a bit of a knee issue, by the sounds of it. It's what Mikel said afterwards on Declan Rice. He said he was feeling some tiredness. I don't know exactly what muscle it was. But when he says that at 3-0, obviously we don't want to take any risks. The same with Big Gabby as well. He had some discomfort. He had a tackle in the first half and was a bit struggling. So it was the right moment to take him off. In other interviews that Mikel did, that quote was taken from the press conference. In other interviews he did with TNT Sports, he did confirm it was a hamstring sensation. He labelled it as when he was talking about Declan Rice. And obviously that's a big blow. And especially just as it looks like Thomas Partey's coming back, if suddenly Declan Rice is out, in one way you can say, oh, that's a bit of a relief because at least Thomas Partey's coming back if Declan Rice is out. But in another way, you just want those two playing together. You just want to be able to see those two playing together and how that's going to work. And so it will be a real shame. But, Arsenal will give them both scans now, probably today or tomorrow. The scans will happen. And then I'm sure we'll find out some news as the week progresses in terms of how bad, if bad, these injury issues are. But that was certainly the big worry, I think, from yesterday's result. And it was a real shame to see them both sort of limp off one after the other. But, fingers crossed, it's all we can do at the moment, that they're not too bad. Okay, these are my player ratings for yesterday's performance. Now, if you're watching this on YouTube, you can see the ratings there. I'll go through them. David Raya, I gave a 7. Probably should have given Raya an 8, to be fair. I'm sort of looking at that now and thinking that's a bit high. In fact, I am. Scrap that number 7. You can see I'm giving David Raya an 8. Having said I thought it was his best game for Arsenal, I think 7's a little bit harsh on him. So I'm giving David Raya an 8. Ben White, I gave a 6. Saliba 7. Gabriel 8. Zinchenko 7. I thought Zinchenko was good yesterday. It's good to see him back. And I thought he played well, and that was good to see. He definitely. I know Zinchenko comes in for some criticism, but when he's in the team, Arsenal are a better side. They are. Yes, there's defensive issues. We all know that, but there's no doubt about it. Arsenal are a better team when Zinchenko's playing and he's fit. Zinchenko 7. Then I gave Rice a 7, Odegaard a 7, Havertz I gave a 6, Saka a 6, Jesus 7, and Trossard 7. So my man of the match was Gabriel. Obviously got those 2 key goals in the first half, and I thought defensively he was great against Mateta. I really enjoyed the battle that Saliba Gabriel had against Mateta, a real physical one. And the sort of battle that both of those players love to get involved in, and I thought they did it very, very well. Substitutes who came on, obviously Gabriel Martinelli has to get an 8. I mean, you can't do much more. I mean, to be fair, you should probably give Martinelli a 10 because what more can you do when you come on as a sub quite late on, other than score 2 goals and really stretch them? But having only played sort of 20 minutes or so, I'm not really going to give him a 10. So I'll give him an 8. Level with Gabriel as my man in the match. Jorginho, really good little cameo from him, got the assist as well. And Nketiah came on, got an assist as well. The subs, or the impactors, as Mikel Arteta likes to call them, certainly did their jobs yesterday. And I thought Emil Smith-Rowe as well, was brilliant to see him come on. You get a proper game time, 25 minutes or so, half an hour actually with stoppage time. The cheer when he came on just shows how, fans desperate to see him get proper game time. It was the loudest cheer of the day once again when he came on, and I liked his cameo. I liked his. I didn't think Havertz. He was fine. Havertz was fine. But it's just noticeable when you see Smith-Rowe come on. Just immediately he's trying to get forward. He's like the intent to actually run with the ball and get forward. I thought it took Arsenal on to another level a little bit. And it wasn't just Smith-Rowe. Of course it wasn't. It was everyone. It was Martinelli coming on. Again, it was game state. Suddenly they had a lot of wide open spaces to run into where they didn't in the first half. But I thought it was a pleasing cameo from Smith-Rowe. And I just hope that's the start. Mikel said in the build-up to it that he is going to be given minutes. He is going to get minutes. And hopefully that was the start yesterday, because I know I'd bore you with it, but I just think he's got such a big part to play in the second half of the season if he can stay fit. And if he's given the opportunities, and hopefully that was the start of him being given the opportunities yesterday. And I thought it was a really good moment to see him come on. Okay, before I wrap this up today, then just sort of bring in a couple of your comments and reactions to the result and to the performance. Mark here saying counter-attack goals at last. Martinelli, just the man for them too. RSN5 says, glad with the Arsenal victory after their long break and poor string of results. Hopefully this would reignite their season. Fingers crossed. And John says, it's great to see Arsenal playing with some speed and scoring some counter-attack goals. We don't always need to slow the ball down. Indeed, there was a lot more intent, I thought, from Arsenal yesterday. Even in the first half, they were trying to move the ball quicker. You saw Ben White try and do a couple of sort of midfield stroke defence splitting passes from his position. Things we hadn't seen that much of. I thought they were definitely trying to move the ball a little bit quicker. It didn't always come off. Some of the passes went off for a goal kick and things like that. But just the intent to try it rather than just take an extra touch or just play a safe ball sideways. I thought it was definitely noticeable that Arsenal were trying to play and move the ball a little bit quicker. And obviously in the second half, that was clearly so much more noticeable because of the space they were given and the way they could attack Crystal Palace. But even in the first half, I thought it was a little bit more promising. So that was good. I thought there's a couple here from 2 different Chris's. First one from Chris Peters says, Martinelli and Trossard both should take some confidence from today. ESR got good minutes, not the performance the scoreline suggests, but no complaints here, so long as no serious injuries to Gabriel and Rice. Yeah, absolutely. Those injuries, certainly the ones sort of cloud hanging over yesterday's performance and result. And as I said earlier, just fingers crossed they are they're not too bad. And yeah, I agree. Martinelli and Trossard, you would hope, really do take some good confidence from that, because both of them needed it. Shame that Saka didn't get himself on the score sheet. It was another pretty underwhelming performance from Saka. I thought Palace did very, very well on him down that side. A lot of Arsenal's play came down the left the entire game, first half and second half. I think that was because the Palace's left-hand side, I thought they were really, really strong and didn't give Arsenal much space at all. And that allowed Arsenal's left-hand side to exploit it. First Trossard and then Martinelli. But, it was a bit of a frustrating afternoon for Saka. Chris Miller says, that's what I want to see, not having every single player back for a corner, leaving someone further up the pitch. So like yesterday when Raya catches the ball and instantly threw it long to set up the third goal. It was in the back of the net in no time. I have said this so many times before, but we are a totally different team when we play with pace and mixing it up more often, like against Palace. Yeah, absolutely. But again, I hate to repeat myself and bore you. I do think game state plays a big part of that. West Ham, you still go back to that West Ham game and how Arsenal played. They were never able to do that because West Ham got themselves in front in the first half. And then they had made it 2-0 pretty early in the second half. So that was it. Arsenal just had no space after that whatsoever. It was always playing against a low block for 90 minutes. Yesterday, it wasn't like that because they got the early goal. They got themselves in front. They weren't playing in front. They weren't playing against a low block for 90 minutes. So getting yourselves in front, getting the first goal, taking advantage of a set piece, something like that it's just so important, and we saw that yesterday. And yeah, fantastic day, fantastic win, really important win for Arsenal. Fingers crossed, everyone. That is the start of a very successful and enjoyable second half of the Premier League season. All right, that is it from me, everyone. Thank you very much for watching or for listening. I do hope you enjoy the final stages of your Sunday, the final stages of your weekend. I'll be back tomorrow once again to talk all things Arsenal. Have a great day, everyone. Speak to you soon. Bye-bye.